everyone. This presentation is about From Things Fall Apart, chapter 25. This is the last part of the book, so I suggest that you give, for the 40 lines, you think about the implications of this chapter, the whole ending of the book, and so that way you have a better understanding of how to go about it. So first of all, let's have a look at diction. Okay, diction, particularly in this extract, is very strong. Okay, remember that here we have Okonkwo. We know that he has hung himself, so his friends are looking for some form of retribution. They're trying to find out what's happening and have some form of understanding. Okay, so words, for example, such as infuriating, which are in yellow, mean, as we know, addiction. Okay, and the choice of primitive we're going to have a look at a bit later. Okay, so let's start with a dialogue. Perhaps in line 1 and 2, perhaps your men will help us. This is interesting how the commissioner did not understand. Okay, Obirika is asking help because there's because, as you know, we know that in the coming lines, Okonkwo has hung himself, and they spiritually they can't do much about it. They need help, someone to remove the body from them, from the tree. So what they're doing is that they're asking for help from the white people. Okay, it's interesting how it's the commissioner, it's not the white commissioner. So the fact that you will notice now that there's a lack of the Ibo words, there's also a lack of a specific mentioning of the white people, and this is very symbolic, stating that as I was saying, it's stating that the colonization has come to a finish and these people have been colonized. So let's have a look at the voice. This is one of the most infuriating habits of these people was their love of superfluous words, he thought. He thought we're referring to the commissioner. So it's interesting how these people, it's no longer the voice of Okonkwo, as we saw in chapter 20. This is the voice of the commissioner now. Okay, there's been a shift in voice, and this is very, very dramatic, and this is very symbolic of what happened to them. Okay, so infuriating habits of these people was this love of superfluous words. So he couldn't understand why he needed help, so he's kind of like making fun of these people and of their practices. Okay, so, and look at the tone. The commissioner and his men followed their firearms held at the ready. So they were going to go help them, but they're still ready because they're scared that there's going to be an attack. Or, as he mentioned, he had warned Obirika that if he and his men played any monkey tricks, they would be shot. Interesting how he chooses the expression, the metaphor, monkey tricks, meaning that if there's anything funny or if this is some form of trick to get to, make this revenge on what the commissioner and his people had done to the leaders. Remember that in a few chapters before, they had beaten them, they had them put into jail because of their actions. Okay, so monkey tricks, also making a resemblance of the way that the Europeans had seen the Africans. Remember that this text in itself is written as a protest. Okay, so it's protesting the fact that the Nigerians had a civilization and everything. So the play of this expression on purpose is it's very demeaning. Is the commissioner is trying to make the Nigerian people feel less important. Then we have in lines 6, 7, and 8 sensory imagery. Remember that we mentioned in class that was visual imagery. Okay. The only opening into this bush from the compound was a little round hole in the red earth wall through which fowls went in and out their endless search for food. The hole would not let a man through. So it was interesting how they're trying to explain how Okonkwo's compound, remember that Okonkwo he had his own obi, then he had his wife's obis, and there was like a circular type of compound that he lived in. So they're trying to help you, the writer is putting the reader in the place of so you can actually visualize everything. Okay, you can see the endless fowls. Fowls are talking about, animals that are going in and out, trying to search for food, trying to show a sense of peacefulness. Okay, it was this bush that led the commissioner, and then we have the oral imagery here. The only sound they made was with their feet as they crushed dry leaves, giving us a sense of emptiness, of something quiet, of imagine people, no one talking, all these men are walking together towards a place where the white men, remember, have no idea what they're getting themselves into, and all the sound they hear is the crushing of the dry leaves. And this is kind of building suspense. Okay, then moving on, then they came to the tree for which Okonkwo's body was dangling, and they stopped dead. This hyperbole is used to emphasize the shock. Okay, it's really exaggerating. They didn't stop as if they were dead people, of course not. But you feel the sense of surprise in these people. Remember, Okonkwo was a great warrior, was very well respected. Even though he was exiled, he still has this, he still has this person of a title. He's still admired by many, and all of a sudden they see his body dangling. The fact that his body is still dangling, okay, it's like, imagine the body going from one side to the other. He was just killed. The wind is making the body move. So the situation is quite heartbreaking. And then we have the dialogue. Again, remember, the dialogue makes the story more dynamic, really puts the reader, not just someone who reads what happens, but really puts the reader in the place of the situation. It's interesting how the aspects that the writer chose to put into dialogues. Okay, perhaps your man can help us bring him down. We have sent for strangers from other villages to do it for us, but they may take a long time. This Obirika is explaining to the district commissioner that they cannot touch the body because it's against their religion. So spiritually, they can't do anything much about it. And it's interesting how in the following lines we can see again dialogue adding to the explanations of what's happening, and how it's an abomination for a man to take his own life. It was seen, as it says here, as an offense against the earth. Okay, so here it's interesting how the language that is chosen here and the lack of Ibo words, okay, can help emphasize the colonization process. We are talking about a specific spiritual, cultural explanation of why they can't take this man's body down, and yet there are no Ibo words. So the fact that they're explaining something of their own culture, instead of saying an abomination, they could have used another word. Okay, they could have used the word abomination in their own language. So the fact that there's no Ibo words here is very symbolic, stating that colonization process has finished. They're losing their identity, they're losing their image of the Ibo people. So moving on, okay, so again, we still have the continuing of the explanations and everything. And in line 24, we have Obirika, who had been gazing steadily at his friend's dangling body, turned suddenly and said ferociously. So we are put into this image of this man looking at his friend's body, he had just committed suicide, seen the body moving side to side, and then turned ferociously. Okay, so he's just, this emphasizes the impotence that Obirika must be feeling. Okay, and then look at how he describes Okonkwo, that man who was once greatest man in Imofia. You drove him to kill himself, and now he'll be buried like a dog. So the fact that he uses a simile, saying that he'll be buried like a dog, like as if it's not important, okay, it creates this sense of impotence, and he just can't understand what's happening. He doesn't understand why he did it, and he feels this impotence that he can't do anything about it. Then in lines 27 and 28, his voice trembled and choked his words. "Shut up," shouted one of the messengers quite unnecessarily. So his voice is trembling. So, we have this sense of sadness, of really, this is heartbreaking. And then one of the other men says, one of the messengers unnecessarily tells him to shut up. the commissioner, I don't know if it's like he was moved by this, but he just says, take the body down and bring the people to the court. So the whole idea of, they take the body down, okay, and then they leave. So when we continue, and here is the breaking point in lines 31 and 32 and 41 and 42, we see the voice. There has been a strong shift of the voice in this chapter. Look at this. In the many years in which he had toiled to bring civilization to different parts of Africa, he had learned a number of things. This is a clear indication. Who is he? We're referring to the commissioner. So we are seeing this whole chapter, we are seeing it through the eyes of the commissioner, resembling that the whole idea of colonization has taken place. And then it's interesting how he tries to the pacification of the primitive tribes of the Lower Niger. So he's trying to say the pacification of the primitive tribes. The choice of the word primitive is like reinforcing the idea. Remember yellow was diction, reinforcing the idea that this specific expression here comes from the commissioner. It does not come from the actual Omofia tribe. They didn't feel they were primitive. They had, and we've seen through the book, they had laws, they had a judicial system. How is it that this man how is it that this tribe is seen as primitive? It is through the eyes of the commissioner. Okay, so the pacification, it ends in like an irony, because you can't believe that this was actually peaceful. Pacification of the primitive tribes, saying that, the commissioner came in, the colonizers came in and created this peace that they did not have before. This in itself is an irony. They brought peace through force. So it's very interesting how throughout the whole text, in this particular extract, we see the removal of the Igbo culture and being colonized by the English culture.